A number of advisors listening, they would be cautious when talking about some of these high-flying, high-growth names to risk-averse clients. They might not have the language to communicate just how much the world is changing, just what the next 5 to 10 years is going to look like. So help give us that language. If we're sitting down again in this studio in 5 to 10 years, how different does the world look?
Okay, so I think there is a general perception that these high growth names are high risk. And the answer to that question is there's a few bits and pieces to it. But the first bit that people probably don't truly appreciate is that almost every single one of these companies has no borrowings.
Oh, yeah, that's
none.
True. Yeah.
Zero. So when you are calculating out the risk of a company, part of that risk is a movement in interest rates because it goes to the debt servicing capability of the company, and it goes to the discount rate that you use for the valuation. If a company doesn't have debt, then you're kind of immediately removing 30% of the risk from the company. So that's the first thing to really note. The second thing to really note is every single one of these companies, with the possible exception of a couple, and I'd have to think about it, because there'd be small positions in our portfolio. But let's do it this way. Of the companies that are capped at more than 100 billion, all of them are cash flow positive. And some of them are significantly cash flow positive. So when you're calculating out risk, the question is, on an annual basis, not thinking about the P&L for a moment, because the P&L is very nice, but it's, accountancy is kind of fiction. But cash doesn't lie, right? So all of these companies that we focus on have significant positive cash flow, and that can't be fudged. That's not true. You can fudge it, but it's obvious. It's very hard to fudge it. Yeah. So that's another sort of 20 or 30% of the risk budget removed. So you're kind of now already up at 50%, as it were, less risky. And then the third thing that makes them less risky is the rate at which they're growing revenue is higher than most any other companies around them. I mean, obviously there's higher growing companies, but from a valuation base, right, it's very difficult to grow your cash flow to 15% when you're $1 trillion company. So, but these companies at valuations like that are growing their revenues by between 10 and 20 and 30%. I mean, we just looked at the NVIDIA numbers literally a few days ago, and I think they were up 70% quarter on prior corresponding quarter. Yeah. And, you can't fudge that, right? So that's another element of risk that is absent, or, where you should discount the risk and say something positive about the company. Those three things by themselves have changed the way we do the valuation process. They don't change valuations. Valuations are valuations. There's only one rule. There's not plan A, plan B, plan C with valuations. I mean, there are, because you can come up with different valuations. But what a company's worth in the end is what it's worth. Those things underpin valuations, and the valuations are borne out by stock market prices. And that's kind of the story, right?
I want to pick up there on the valuation process, because you've mentioned it a couple of times. What is that sort of process? What is the language that you're all talking in the office?
We have broken down the valuation process into its core components. Those core components are based on a 10 plus year cash flow estimation. And those valuation components are dictated by first year revenue growth, and then an assumption for what we think the fifth year of revenue growth will be, and then declining revenue growth after that point.
Okay.
Point one. Then point two, each of the companies is put into a risk bucket, risk rank 1 to 5. Risk rank 1 companies are companies like Apple that are discounted at the lowest discount rate. So in Apple's case, I think that is 6%. And so obviously if you're discounting a company's value by 6%, you're going to get a higher net present value because you're discounting it by a lower amount. And those discount rates, and there are 5 of them, go 6, 8, 10, 15 and 25. The highest risk companies we put on a 25% discount rate. Those are companies that can go broke.
Or to the moon.
Or to the moon. Correct. Or to the moon. And those companies, the risk rank 5 companies, we are limited within our PDS to holding no more than 4% of the portfolio in. So we can't blow up the portfolio with the 4% going to zero. Can't happen.
Not many companies are going to get into the portfolio with a 25% discount rate. Like, that's a tough hurdle.
That's a tough hurdle, and it's meant to be.
Yeah.
I think we only have one in there at 25% right now, or maybe it's even none. And then the risk rank 4s are 15, and that's a tough hurdle. So we make it so where a company does have risk, it might be revenue growth risk, it might be competitive risk, it might be execution risk. We adjust for that in the discount rates, and we are harsh. What that means is that a lot of companies that we could invest in that do well, we don't invest in. But it also means that the companies that we do invest in, we have a high level of comfort around. We don't have to move the portfolio positions too much, and the performance, is more than 15% per annum over 9-ish years, 8-ish years, with more than 5% outperformance on a per annum basis over that period. So we kiss a lot of frogs. Right, we miss a lot of princes, right? But the frogs that we do kiss, we are absolutely certain that they're going to be princes, and we keep them at a very small number because we don't want a portfolio of frogs.
Nice.